Hi, this is Suzanne from Ohio. Hey, I have a great idea, I think. Some new slow stitching collage kits that I'm going to put up on my Etsy site. But I want to tell you how this came about while you're looking at this right here. I will explain that in just a minute. But do you ever go through all your stash and feel guilty? And you just have so much stuff you just don't know what to do? Well, I'm at that stage and I'm at that age, and I've been doing fabric arts and paper arts such as junk journals for going on 15 years now. So I have quite a stash. Not to mention the fact that I go to the thrift store with my sister and my friend Susan, and no matter what I say, they make me buy stuff. No, really, I buy stuff because I also have this urge to rescue every wonderful thing that I see at the thrift store. So I have a plethora of everything. And um, when people talk about stash busting, I don't know what in the world they mean, because is there really any way to do that? I don't know. Other than a dumpster, which, when we all get older, and our kids don't want it, nobody's interested, it probably will go in a dumpster. But I hope they have enough presence of mind when I'm gone, put all my stuff in bags and give it back to the thrift store. So that's my thought process. So what I asked myself when I started looking at all my stuff, and I try to keep it organized, and I'm pretty good at it, is what can I make without recreating the wheel and use up pieces and parts of everything I've got. So this collage right here is the first thing I came up with. And I did, after I got my brain organized, what I decided to do was get in my computer, and I found this image of a robin that I had watercolored several years ago. He's actually on a calendar, front of a calendar, or one of the months of a calendar. So I thought, well, I'm going to see how he looks printed off. And if you know what I've done before, you know that I have created and have on my Etsy site bird applique kits. But I thought, how about something simpler for these collages? And if I printed off this robin, what could I do with him? So I printed him off on fabric, and this one I added some extra color with crayon, and this one the same thing but very, very little crayon, because I realized that after I stitched this robin, he got darker because of all the black outlines. So I thought I need to start out with something just a little bit lighter and let the thread stitching, the slow stitching, accent him. So I've ended up with this right here, and I'll show you in just a minute what I'm going to do with him. And this one I brought over just as an example to show you what I did. So he's printed on fabric also, and I rough cut him out, but I fussy cut around the upper part of his body. And then when I laid him on the background, I wanted to make sure, like for instance, this blue that I had left on there blended into the piece. So I, did some little tiny cross stitches just to blur that line, and then added some up here to make him look like he fits in that composition. And I will probably do the same thing with this one. He would have looked good on here too with the green background, but I'll make another one for him. Hey, let me prop up my little board so you can get a better look at the perspective, because my camera is at an angle. And so what I've done is print off several of these robins, some facing left, some facing right, and I want to put them in simple collages with all of the scrap and rescued and repurposed pieces that I have. So what I want to do is tell you that this one is almost finished, but I want you to see what he looked like before I started stitching on him. So I took a photograph. I'm going to bend this so that I can get it under the camera more correctly. Here's what it looked like before I started any stitching. And I'll explain what you're looking at here. There was a piece of a dresser scarf doily, and it had some embroidery on it. I had scraps of crocheted doilies. I snipped one of them off and put there. I had another one here, and then a quarter of a doily with this Battenberg lace on it. And then I put the blue in the background, and that was my start. And I really just thought I'll use a lot of this blank space, negative space, to do thread stitching in, slow stitching. So you can compare the two sides right here. I added a leaf, and I didn't even try to make it look like the original leaf. What's the point? It needs to look a little bit more organic, and I added these twirlies, and of course, like I said, the cross stitches in the background. And then over here, you can see this, I have the blue fabric sticking out, but I trimmed it off and put it totally behind the Battenberg. And then I have to decide what I want to put here and here. So just so you can see how that comes together. Well, here's a good comparison. If you look at both photographs together, you can see how far I got with this. And in real life, it does look even more so. And I'm thinking I'll go back, and where I think it needs some more slow stitching, I'll add that. But not until I fill in these two spaces, because I want to put something there. Now, this is a look into how my brain works according to what I know I have that I can work with. So I pulled out a few things just to give you some idea. And one thing I came up with was I've been adding some paper pieces to some of my collages, because why not? This is creative art. So I had this printout of an 1899 seed catalog. And I had that, of course, for junk journal type things. And I thought, oh, that looks nice. The shades of green match. The rust color and the rust color in there. That looks good if I want to do that. And then what for down here? So I had some rubber stamps that I had printed off on muslin. And I thought, okay, that could be a possibility. Stitch that in there. Also, I have some of my little mushrooms that I have made, and that could have a couple mushrooms there, although I feel like these two specifically are a little too dark, so I might make a couple new ones. Also, I took the rubber stamp thing and colored them, added some green to them to see if I like that. Just some fawns fern. And then I thought, okay, what else? Well, and mind you, I was just grabbing stuff off of my table. I have pieces and parts that I've picked up at the thrift store, and this came from the thrift store exactly like that. Let's turn this so those two fabrics aren't totally matching up. And it's just little scraps of fabric where someone had been probably quilting, and they had these little strips. But stitched on there, and then some slow stitching on some of this. Like you could do one flower stem and put a flower on each one of those. And then I found another print of a seed catalog, and I thought, well, that looks nice with that because there's pink in that and pink in that. So that's a possibility. But also, I found a print of, let's see, you can't read it, but you would be in real life. Homes of the Birds. It's about bird nests. So something like that could be mounted there. And then you could also embroidery right here. So the ideas actually are endless, just endless, of the pieces and parts that you could put together. So I have created this one as a sample, and that will go as the sample image on my Etsy site. And then I will have at least 6 or 7 of these collages in their original raw form, like this one, with a stack of pieces and parts that you can choose what to add to it and how to add it. But, pardon me, to get the foundation ready, I'll just lightly spray baste the main pieces on and together, and then add a few straight pins. And then you can decide how you want to slow stitch those on there. So that one is my almost finished piece. And then I want to show you what's going to be my next one. Now you probably cannot even see this, but this was an embroidery panel that I found at the thrift store. And it is printed in real light brown. So I'm going to color, it's a teapot, I'm going to color this teapot in with crayon. And I'm going to back it so that it has some foundation to it. And I will send that along with one kit, and the person can either use that as the whole background and add to it, or they can cut it out and use it as an applique. Now, I thought about the robin, and what I did was take the original robin and flip him, hold on just a second. I lost my, I'm telling you, this cursor, there I found it. Okay. All right. I have to keep an eye on what I'm doing here. I flipped him facing the other direction because of the configuration of the teapot, and I believe he will really look good coming into the frame like that. So I haven't cut him out yet. I'm going to think about that for a little bit, but he will be superimposed on top of this teapot. And then if you have a robin in the spring and a teapot, what else do you need? I'll think about that and then add some other things to a background. And that is how the kits will be formulated and come together. They're all about the size of a sheet of paper, and they could be lightly stitched on or heavily stitched, depending on what your style is. Now, I wanted to, bear with me, I want to show you two other ideas I came up with. And this was actually my first idea. And then, you know how one thing leads to another. And all these pieces and parts that I have. So let's switch this out. I want you to see this little collage. So what I had was, I had this ribbon embroidery on a curtain valance that I had rescued. So I cut a piece of that out, another piece of that crochet, And here was a dresser scarf that had a white embroidery of violets, and you couldn't even tell what they were. So I used my ink tints and put on top of them. Now I laid this whole thing out on the on a piece of muslin that had one of my original watering cans painted on it. Let me get a blank one so you can see. So here's some of the blank ones that I had. And I had kept these back for master copies. And I thought, I've got them in my computer. What am I waiting on? So there's a green one, teal blue, and a pink watering can. And I will collage something around these, and that will be kits. Um, and I have the original watering can in a file on my computer so I can always print out more. But in an effort to de-stash, which is like one drop in the ocean, I'm going to go ahead and part with those. So here's what one of them looks like. And the little trowel, and I wonder if you can see the trowel and the digging fork and the terracotta pots. Those are all of my original watercolors too. And they're printed on fabric and cut out. Now the hare, or you might say bunny, he's a print of public domain artwork from 1586, I believe. And he's just so perfect. He's printed on heavy paper and then glued right into the collage. And when I originally put this one together, I thought, well, I'll put all this together and then I'll slow stitch. Well, the truth is, there wasn't much place to add slow stitching. I added a few twigs here. I put some of my scrap lace behind there for texture. I added some twirlies to this vine. But really, it doesn't need anything else. Oh, I added this little bit of grass back here. And so it can be just as is. So I'm going to finish off the back of him and put him up for sale on my Etsy site. But what I will do with these is leave them more of a slow stitch kit for someone to do stitching on. Now, along the same vines of this, I should say vein, as this, I came up with a second one. I had this doily that had a bird, one of my watering cans, and the leaves that you see here in the background, I'll show you what that looks like. This was a leaf. I painted it from looking at my own plant. It's a cut leaf coneflower. Those things are kind of rare. They grow about 8 feet high, gorgeous big yellow blossom on the top, and sunflower yellow, but they are a coneflower, so they have that domed center. And the birds and the bees absolutely love that plant. Well, that's on another subject. But what I did was print out these on different sizes on fabric and bagged them with my Pellon to give them some substance. And that's what I created my greenery with here. I also added 3 of my mushrooms. These are made out of batiks. I have a whole collection of them. I'll send 1 or 2 or 3 with every kit, and they can be used on your fabric collage or not. You can save them for another project. I had this fabric with these little gold flowers in it, and I just backed it with some Pellon and cut some out. The feather is also one of my original watercolors, and because it's a bluebird and blah, 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 I just thought I'd lay that feather right there. And again, I thought I would, slow stitch on top of this, but it doesn't need it. So I'm going to leave that as is, or add a few more things or change something, and then that will be up for sale on my Etsy site. But let's go back to this, because that's what it's all about. It's all about making something from nothing and using the pieces and parts that you've already got. And to tell you the truth, I think I'm leaning toward this. And I just put that little piece of torn fabric behind there because it needs something to make it look nestled in. And I do think I will just simply make a couple new mushrooms in a lighter colored fabric. So that's about how that sample will look when you see them on my Etsy site. So I hope that sparks some creativity in you, and think about your stash that someone's going to get rid of one of these days. And I just hope you can use it. Let's pray you use it all up before you go on to glory. Okay? All right. Thank you for watching. I hope this sparks some ideas for you. If you were inspired, give me a thumbs up, and also just a tiny comment, and tell me where you're watching from. I just love to know. The world is big, and we all get in our own little tunnel and forget how varied life is all around the world. So I just love to hear where you're from. And thank you for watching. I'll be back again soon with some completed kits so you can see them as they're posted up on my Etsy site. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.